The city of Carthon Prime never slept. It was a place built from rust, greed, and noise, where every scream had a price and every heart could be sold. In the center of the trade hall stood a cage made of silver alloy, glowing under flickering neon lights. Inside that cage, curled in the corner, was a girl. Not human, not tame. Her skin shimmered faintly like polished bronze, and her eyes burned gold in the half-dark. The crowd around the cage whispered in fear. She killed 3 guards. One alien muttered, broke the 4th one's neck with her chains, hissed another. She's not worth a single credit, growled a 3rd. The auctioneer, a fat creature with long blue fingers, slapped the bars with his cane. Lot 47, he shouted. Last of her kind. Wild, dangerous. A perfect trophy or a fine weapon if you can control her. He grinned, showing sharp metal teeth. Starting bid, 500 credits. No one moved. The girl lifted her head slowly. Her eyes swept across the hall, through the smoke, through the laughter, through the shadows. For a moment it seemed like those golden eyes could see into every mind, searching, judging, hating. The auctioneer's grin faded. He banged his cane again. Come now. You wanted excitement. You wanted something rare. Still silence. Even the gamblers at the back stopped whispering. Then, from the far side of the hall came the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, steady. Every head turned. A human walked forward. He wore an old brown coat torn at the edges, dust covering his boots. His face was calm, unreadable, like someone who had already seen too much. His name was Elias Ward, once a soldier, now just a drifter. He stopped in front of the cage. The alien girl glared at him through the bars, wild hair falling over her face. Her wrists were chained, her mouth pressed in silent defiance. The auctioneer leaned forward. Careful, human, he sneered. She'll tear your throat out before you can blink. Elias didn't answer. His eyes met hers, and in that instant the noise of the market seemed to fade. He saw not rage, but something behind it. Pain. Fear. Pride. He looked at the auctioneer. I'll take her, Elias said quietly. Laughter erupted around him. You, a human, you'll be dead in a day, shouted one of the bidders. She's a beast. Another spat. Elias ignored them. He raised his hand. The auctioneer blinked. Final offer? Human, are you sure? Elias didn't lower his hand. His voice was calm, but his words carried across the hall like a whisper of thunder. I said I'll take her. The auctioneer slammed his cane down. Sold. The crowd murmured in disbelief as guards unlocked the cage. The girl didn't move. Her golden eyes locked on the man who had just bought her freedom, or her doom. Elias turned, motioning for the guards to release her chains. For a heartbeat, she just stared at him, silent, tense, like a wild storm trapped in human skin. Then she stepped out of the cage. The crowd fell quiet. Somewhere deep in the hall, a light flickered out. And in that moment, Elias Ward realized the real auction had just begun. The journey from the auction to Elias Ward's outpost was silent. The wind howled through the desert, carrying sand that bit like tiny blades. The alien girl sat in the back of the crawler, chained, staring out at the endless dunes. She hadn't said a word since she left the cage. Elias drove without looking at her. He could feel her eyes on him, sharp, unblinking, like a hunter waiting for the perfect moment. When the crawler stopped outside a small shelter built into the cliffs, he finally spoke. You're safe here, he said softly. The girl didn't answer. She stepped out, her chains rattling, her gaze cold and wild. Inside, the outpost was simple. Metal walls, a small bed, a table, and a shelf with old photos. The smell of dust and machine oil filled the air. Elias placed food on the table, warm bread and water. You need to eat, he said. The girl stared at the food, then at him. Without warning, she grabbed the plate and threw it against the wall. The crash echoed through the room. Elias didn't move. He just sighed, sat down, and began eating from another plate himself. Suit yourself, he murmured. For the rest of the night, she stood in the corner, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, watching him like an animal behind invisible bars. At dawn, Elias stepped outside to check his equipment. He found the girl standing near the ridge, staring at the horizon. Her hands were still chained, but her stance was proud, almost regal. The twin suns rose behind her, painting her skin in golden fire. You have a name? he asked. She turned her head slightly. No answer. He tried again. You understand me, right? Her eyes narrowed. Human words? Hurt. Her voice was low, cracked, strange, like someone learning to speak again after years of silence. Elias blinked. Then don't force it. She glared at him. Why, buy me? He shrugged. Didn't like the look of the cage. She frowned, confused. You think you own me now? He met her gaze. No, I think you need a place to start again. Her lips tightened. There is no again for my kind. She turned away, pulling the chains tight. That night Elias woke to a sound, the soft click of a lock. He looked around and saw the door open. The girl was gone. He grabbed his rifle and stepped into the storm. The wind was fierce, carrying sand like fire. Through the haze he saw faint footprints. Small, fast, desperate. Then came the hum, drones, hunting lights flashing through the storm. Damn it, Elias muttered, running toward her. He saw her ahead, cornered between rocks, fighting off a metal drone with her bare hands. Sparks lit the air as she roared and smashed its core. But another drone aimed its blaster right at her. Elias didn't think. He leapt forward, shoving her aside. The blast hit him square in the chest. The girl froze, staring in shock as he fell to the ground. For the first time, her voice broke, a whisper, trembling with something she didn't understand. Human. Why, when Elias Ward opened his eyes, everything hurt. His chest burned where the drone's blast had hit, and the smell of metal and smoke filled the room. The ceiling above him was cracked. He was back inside his outpost. He tried to move, but a soft voice stopped him. Don't, he turned his head slowly. The alien girl sat beside the bed. Her wrists were free now. The chains were gone. His medkit lay open on the table. You patched me up? Elias asked weakly. She didn't answer right away. Her golden eyes stayed on the wound across his chest, glowing faintly in the low light. Finally she said, You human. You stupid, Elias smiled faintly. You're not wrong. He tried to sit up, but pain pushed him back down. She reached out as if to stop him, then pulled her hand away quickly, unsure of her own instinct. You could have died, she said. Her words were broken, heavy with accent. Yeah, Elias said softly, but you'd be dead too. The girl stared at him, her expression unreadable. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Why? Elias took a deep breath. Someone had to. Silence filled the room. Only the wind outside dared to speak. Hours passed. Elias rested. The girl, still nameless, Ina, stayed close, watching him, studying him as if trying to understand what kind of creature he was. Once she touched his bandage and whispered something in her alien tongue, soft and sharp like music mixed with pain. He didn't understand the words, but the tone told him enough. It wasn't anger anymore. It was confusion, and maybe something gentler. When night fell, Elias sat up again. He reached for the bottle of water beside him. What do I call you? He asked. The girl hesitated. For a long moment it seemed she wouldn't answer. Then she said slowly, Rinka. Elias nodded. Rinka, he repeated, trying to pronounce it right. Her eyes softened just a little. You say it wrong. Then you'll have to teach me. She looked at him, truly looked. And for the first time since he'd met her, she almost smiled. It was small, uncertain, but real. Later, while Elias slept, Rinka walked through the outpost. She touched the walls, the old pictures. One of a human child smiling, holding a small toy ship. She picked it up gently. The metal was warm from the desert air. Elias stirred behind her. Her name was Mara, he murmured. My daughter. Rinka froze. She died in the war, he continued. The same one that destroyed your world. Rinka turned slowly. Your kind killed my people, Elias nodded. And my kind killed my family too. Doesn't change much, does it? She looked at the photo again, silent. Her voice trembled. I was told humans have no heart. Elias smiled faintly. Guess someone lied. For a long time, neither spoke. The air between them was heavy, not with hate, but with something new. Something fragile. Something that might one day become trust. As the night faded into the cold morning light, Rinka whispered her last words before dawn, words that echoed in Elias's mind long after. If I stay, she said quietly, I fight for no one. He looked at her and answered softly, then fight for yourself. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Rinka stayed mostly outside the outpost, sitting on the rocky ridge where the wind howled like ghosts. She would watch the twin suns rise and fall, her golden eyes reflecting both light and sadness. Elias worked on repairing his crawler and checking the comm signals, but deep down, he knew peace never lasted long on Carthon Prime. The world was a hiding place, and hiding places never stayed secret forever. Inside the outpost, Rinka began to explore. She touched the walls, brushed the dust from shelves, and opened drawers filled with old tools. In one corner, half buried beneath a tarp, she found a broken hollow frame. She tapped the screen. It flickered to life, showing a smiling human child holding a small ship model. Rinka froze. The same ship she'd seen on the table before. Elias stepped in quietly. Found that, huh? He said. Rinka turned, startled, but didn't drop the frame. She was yours? He nodded slowly. My daughter, Mara. There was silence. The only sound came from the soft hum of the machines in the next room. What happened? She asked. Elias sighed, leaning against the doorway. War. A blast. Wrong place, wrong time. They said it was the enemy, but I don't even remember who fired first anymore. Rinka looked at the image again. The human child was laughing, bright, full of life. My people were told humans feel nothing, she said. That you destroy because you can. Elias gave a tired smile. Some of us did. Some of us still do. But I'm not one of them anymore. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. That evening, the air changed. A sharp static filled the comm receiver. Elias frowned and walked to the console. The screen flashed red. Unknown signal detected. He adjusted the frequency and a cold voice came through. Target confirmed. The runaway asset is located near the wastelands. Prepare for retrieval. Elias's heart dropped. They had found her. He turned to Rinka. We have to move now. Rinka stood frozen. Who? Bounty teams. Maybe worse. You're marked property, Rinka. Her fists clenched. I am not property. Then prove it. Let's go. Outside, the sky glowed with streaks of fire. Incoming ships entering the atmosphere. The wind picked up, carrying the sound of engines and thunder. Elias grabbed his rifle, slinging it across his back. Head to the ridge. Stay low. Rinka didn't run. She looked at the burning sky and muttered, They will kill you if you stay. He looked at her and smiled faintly. Maybe, but I already made my choice the day I raised my hand. The ground shook as the first ship landed nearby. Dust exploded into the air. Voices echoed, a metallic, cruel, eager. Elias pushed Rinka toward the cliffs. Go. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then turned and ran. Elias faced the storm alone. The rifle steady in his hands, eyes calm. The first spotlight cut through the dust, and a voice shouted through the air. Turn over the alien girl, human, and you might live. Elias exhaled slowly, finger tightening on the trigger. Guess you don't know me very well. Then the first shot fired, and the desert lit up like fire. The desert night was burning. Blinding flashes tore through the darkness as plasma bolts slammed into the rocks. The ground shook with every hit. Elias Ward crouched behind the wreck of his crawler, rifle in hand, his heart pounding. The bounty team had arrived, metal-armored soldiers with red visors, moving in perfect formation. Drones buzzed above them like vultures waiting for death. Elias. Rinka's voice called through the storm. She was running toward him, chains from her wrists swinging in the air like silver snakes. Get down, he shouted. A bolt sizzled past her, hitting the crawler. The explosion threw her to the sand. Elias dove forward, pulling her behind the wreckage. Are you insane? He snapped. You stayed to die. She yelled back. He gave a weak grin. Wouldn't be the first time. They both knew they couldn't hold their ground. Elias checked his ammo, 3 shots left. The bounty team had dozens. Follow me, he said, dragging himself toward the ridge. They moved through the smoke, the storm whipping sand into their faces. Drones scanned the air with red beams. One passed just inches above Rinka's head. When it turned, she grabbed a shard of metal from the ground and hurled it. The blade hit the drone's core. It exploded in a shower of sparks. Elias stared. Remind me not to make you angry. Rinka's eyes glowed. Then don't give me a reason. They reached a narrow canyon where the wind howled between the cliffs. Elias stumbled, coughing, blood seeping through his shirt. The blast wound from before had reopened. Keep going, he gasped. Rinka stopped. No. She ripped a strip of cloth from her arm wrap and pressed it against his wound. You saved me once. I save you now. He looked up at her, voice shaking. You don't owe me anything, she glared at him. You're wrong. You raised your hand for me. That means something. Elias tried to laugh, but pain turned it into a groan. You aliens sure take gestures seriously. Some gestures, she said softly, mean everything. The storm grew louder. Engines rumbled above, ships circling like predators. Through the dust, Elias saw the emblem on their hulls. Terran authority. Not bounty hunters, soldiers, his own people. He froze. No, not them, Rinka frowned. Your kind? He nodded grimly. They'll kill us both. Why? Because I chose you. The first dropships landed nearby, sand swirling around their boots. Loudspeakers roared, Elias Ward! You are charged with treason, aiding an enemy species. Surrender the alien! Elias looked at Rinka. She looked back, eyes burning like stars. Go, she whispered. Run while you can. But Elias stood tall, gripping his rifle. The wind whipped his coat, his shadow long against the firelight. He raised his voice, steady and cold. I already raised my hand once. I'm not lowering it now. The soldiers moved in. Rinka stepped beside him. You fight for me? He gave a faint smile. No, I fight with you. And as the storm screamed across the desert, human and alien stood side by side, against a world that would not let them exist together. The price of that single raised hand was everything. The desert was silent again. Only the crackling of fire and the hum of engines broke the stillness. Elias Ward and Rinka stood surrounded by soldiers in black armor, the mark of the Terran authority. Drop your weapon, the commander shouted, his visor reflecting the flames. Elias slowly lowered his rifle, his hands raised. Rinka's golden eyes glowed fiercely, but Elias gave her a small shake of his head. Not now, he whispered. The soldiers closed in. In seconds, metal cuffs locked around their wrists. Hours later, they were aboard a Terran cruiser. Cold walls, white lights, and silence that felt heavier than chains. Elias sat in an interrogation cell, his hands bound to the table. The door slid open. A woman entered, uniform sharp, eyes colder than steel. Commander Voss. She looked down at him like one would look at a broken machine. Elias Ward, she said. Former soldier, dishonorably discharged. And now, aiding an alien fugitive. Do you have a death wish? Elias met her gaze calmly. Depends on what kind of death you're offering. Voss smirked. You always were stubborn. She placed a data tablet on the table, showing an image of Rinka restrained in a glass containment unit. That creature, she's a biological weapon. Do you even know what she is? Elias stared at the image. I know she's alive. That's enough. Voss leaned closer. She's not like us. She was designed to destroy humans. You think she cares about you? He didn't answer. His silence said everything. Voss stood, frustration flashing in her eyes. You could have walked away, Ward. You could have survived. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe surviving isn't the same as living. Meanwhile, in the lab, Rinka sat inside the containment cell. Needles, scanners, and lights surrounded her. Scientists whispered as they examined her. Fascinated, afraid. One of them said, her DNA resists radiation. She could rebuild a colony after a nuclear strike. Another replied, that's why the generals want her. She's the future of human warfare. Rinka clenched her fists, breathing heavily. Their words hit her like blades. The future of human warfare. She wasn't a person, just another weapon to be used and thrown away. Her vision flickered gold. The glass around her began to crack. The lights dimmed. Alarm screamed. Containment breach. Someone shouted. The glass exploded. Rinka stepped out, eyes glowing like burning suns. Never again, she said. Elias heard the alarms. He pulled hard against his cuffs until blood ran down his wrists. A soldier ran in yelling orders. Elias swung his chained hands into the guard's face, knocking him out cold. He grabbed the key card and unlocked his restraints. He ran through the chaos and lights flashing red, smoke filling the halls. Then he saw her, standing in the corridor, glowing with energy, her chains shattered. Rinka, he breathed. She looked at him, eyes soft for the first time. You came. Of course I did, he said. I defy orders. It's kind of my thing. Together, they fought their way to the hangar, stealing a dropship as the alarms blared. As they escaped into the black void of space, Elias sent a message to the Terran command. If being human means obeying monsters, then I'd rather die a traitor. The stars stretched endlessly before them. The stolen dropship drifted through the quiet of space, its engines barely alive. Inside, the lights flickered weakly and the smell of smoke and blood hung in the air. Elias Ward sat in the pilot's seat, his breathing slow, his shirt dark with crimson. The wound from the blast was getting worse. Rinka worked silently beside him, trying to seal the injury with trembling hands. "Stop," Elias whispered. "It's no use." "You don't tell me what's useless," she snapped, her voice shaking. He gave a weak laugh. "You sound more human every day." She looked at him, eyes burning gold in the dim light. "If being human means watching someone die, then I don't want it." Elias reached up, his rough hand brushing her cheek. "Then, you'll be better than us." Hours passed. The ship floated among the ruins of an asteroid belt. The stars were quiet witnesses to a man slowly fading away. Elias leaned back, staring at the tiny planet visible through the window. A small, uninhabited moon glowing pale blue. "Land us there," he said. Rinka hesitated. "It's empty." "Good," he murmured. "Maybe peace still exists somewhere empty." The ship landed roughly. Elias stumbled outside, the sand crunching under his boots. The air was thin but breathable. The sky shimmered like glass. He looked around and smiled faintly. Not a bad place to stop. Rinka followed him out, helping him walk until he sat beneath a small ridge. His body was weak, but his eyes still carried that same quiet fire. "You should go," he said softly. "They'll come after you again." Rinka shook her head. "I don't run anymore," he chuckled. "You sound like me now." She knelt beside him. "You taught me something." "Oh?" His voice was fading. "That sometimes strength isn't about killing. It's about choosing who you stand for." Elias smiled, tired, proud, peaceful. "Then I guess I did one thing right." As the light dimmed in his eyes, Rinka felt something break inside her. A quiet ache, deeper than anger, sharper than fear. She stayed beside him until the suns rose again, painting the sky in colors she had never seen before. When it was done, she buried him beneath a circle of stones and placed something on top, his old soldier's medal. Using his knife, she carved words into the rock in her broken English. "The man who raised his hand for me." For a long time, she just stood there, watching the wind move across the sand. Then she looked up at the stars. "I raise mine for you now," she whispered. She boarded the dropship and took off, leaving the small moon behind. The engines roared to life, pushing her into the sea of stars. Alone, but not lost. Somewhere far away, the Terran authorities still hunted her. But Rinka no longer cared. She carried something far greater than fear. She carried his humanity. As the ship vanished into the endless dark, her voice echoed softly in the cabin. "He was human, and I was his proof."